Subtank Mini. Still firing? No.
Swinging on and happy, hippie, yeah. Hippie, yeah.
What's up YouTube? Welcome back to Whacked Out ECIG. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from normal. It's going to be a vertical coil build on the original Subtank Mini. Now this may not look like a Subtank Mini of any sort, but it is. I'm using a bell cap that I got from Fastech, and you'll see it a bit more in the up close, and then I'll talk about it when we're done the whole tutorial. So let's get that started. Okay, so this is my way of how I build this coil. So what you will need for this procedure is a screwdriver, wire cutters, about 6 inches of 24 gauge Canthal wire, a 3mm rod, or anything that's 3mm, a screwdriver, drill bit, or whatever, scissors, and some tweezers, and obviously cotton, and a Subtank Mini. To start off, I'm going to be using this Coil Jig. I'll probably find a link on Fastech or something to where you can find these. They're pretty simple, but this is just what I use for this. So you unscrew like that, pop the 3mm rod inside, take your 24 gauge Canthal, unscrew that, and just pin it under. Tighten it up with the screws so it's nice and in place. You're going to want to do about 6 wraps. So let's see if I can do this on camera. Okay, so now you have your 6 wraps, and you're going to want to keep it like that so that you have this lead going up and this lead going down, because that's how the Subtank Mini works. And I just kind of squeeze that together, just make it look a bit better. We have our rod. Next we're going to need the tweezers, and the reason for this is because if you take your Subtank Mini base and pop that 3mm bit inside of it, you need one wire to go in this side and one wire to go in the other, but you don't want to like pull that, you don't want to have to pull that down, alright? You don't want it to look too janky like that. So what we're going to do is take our tweezers, and this is going to be really hard to do on camera, sorry. We're going to take our tweezers and grab them right up against it, and just pull one up. Okay? And then so now we have that going upwards. We're going to want to take it right where that crease is, basically, and turn it the other way. Kind of pull it up a bit. And that kind of gives it that that interesting look there. Then on the next side, so the easiest way to see how to do this, right, is now that I pull this coil down, it just sits in that groove there. So now this one needs to be facing that way and needs to go down and across. So we'll take our tweezers once again, and pull it down. Sorry if this is kind of shoddy. Yeah, so that's down, and we want to bring that up now. Right? So now we can look like that. Now we have something that looks a bit like that. The next thing we want to do is now we can take our base, and I'm going to put it on a device to make it easier. And what I'll do is just slide that down and you can see that it's just about right. Okay, maybe this one on the left could be a bit better, but it should do just fine. And you want to just push the coil down as far as it can go, enough that it's not too high, because if it goes above these screws too high, then this thing is not going to fit on top of it. So we have these in place. Now we're going to use our screwdriver and just tighten down those leads. Get it nice and snug in there. Take the next one. Hold down the lead there so that it just doesn't go anywhere. And now we have it in place. Next step, pretty simply, take your wire cutters. Cut it as close as the edge as possible as you can. You might want to hold it, but yeah, that just flew across my room. So I would advise to always hold your wire when you're cutting it, because it can fly and that can be pretty dangerous, especially if you have other people around. Okay, so now let's see what we have. See, there's no wire sticking out really. Maybe a little bit on that side, but it's nothing to complain about. And now we can actually take out this rod and look directly into the air hole. Alright, so that's the basic idea of what we're trying to get at. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is make sure that it's glowing properly, like most things. So let me pop it on a mod that has battery in it. Now we have it here. Let's check the resistance. 0.55. I was aiming for around 0.5 or 0.6, so that's pretty much perfect. And 30 watts should be enough to get it glowing nicely. Let's see. And what we want to do is just work out a lot of those hot spots. You can easily see that's not glowing properly. So I'm going to take my tweezers, if I can do this on camera. And this is a very tricky part, because the coil is not always going to stay centered if you can't squeeze it properly, right? It's getting a little better. Let's check on the other side. Yes, it's not that bad. We can do the standard now. I would do it on both sides, because why not? And that's glowing nicely there. And nicely there. Awesome. Let's wick it. So the cotton that I'm going to be using is this Koga cotton. Find it works nicely, especially with the you're going to want to use some kind of strips. I find that makes it a lot easier, like the Japanese organic strips. And honestly, what we want to do is kind of get it just right around the coil. So what I generally do is I take the rod that I used and just get an idea of how much cotton I want to get, right? So I can cut it there, and that will give me a decent idea of how much cotton I want. So let's cut it. And we definitely don't need this much cotton, so you know what, we can cut this in half, and worst case scenario, if we mess up, we can use the other half to try it again. Okay, so this is where it's going to get tricky to get on camera, because this is the most meticulous part about this build, is the wicking. The easiest thing I can recommend is just twisting this a little bit, okay? Just enough to get through. You see, one goes over and one goes under. We want to get this under. You might need a tweezers to get in there and grab your cotton. There we go, just enough to get it through. And while you're pulling through, you want to pull up as well, because you want it to go around the coil. So once we're about there, I would say, we want to wet it. I'm going to be using some of this, this is a tobacco, like a French pipe, and that sticker from Albert at ecigarettes.ca. It's a Wicking sticker, it's pretty cool. So yeah, we're just going to wet it a bit. Can I get all around the sides? And since we're using our hands for this, you're going to get liquid on your hands, so just bear that in mind. You can use a screwdriver if you want, and just kind of, the reason you wet it is so that it can stick. Oh, you can see me in the ECIG. Yeah, you want it to stick to the thing, but at the same time you don't want that cotton to block that inner hole. So we'll discuss that in a bit, but what you can do is kind of just stick your screwdriver in there and push so that it moves out of the way. Next, we're going to take this part, going to hold that with one finger, bring that across and over. Okay, so now you kind of get an idea of what it's supposed to look like. Sorry, this is looking honestly pretty bad because it's hard to do on camera and keep it all on camera, but that's the basic idea of what we want to do. So obviously that's too much cotton there now, so we can cut the excess off. Okay, you don't want to cut off too much of it because you still want it to wrap around and be, you want it to be relatively tight around the coil. I'd say get it as tight as possible so that it just doesn't go anywhere, because if it is too loose it could cause flooding. But yeah, so that's kind of in place there. You see it's wrapping right around the coil, and you can also see that the hole is no longer fully there. So we're going to take that rod again and just stick it through the coil. Okay, and that just fucked up the wicking. Just stick that right back across, stuff it in the sides. That tends to help with tightening it up. Okay, and now when we pull this out, the hole should be free, and there we go. So now what we can do is just kind of wet it up a little bit more, brushing it at the same time, and let's see if it creates vapors. It does. Awesome. So it may not look the prettiest, but for the most part it works. If you can really get that wicking down, that's really what you want to do. You want to get it as tight as possible around that coil so it's not going anywhere. Yeah, if you have any suggestions to making it a bit tighter around the coil, feel free to let me know. The next thing we're going to do is take your top cap and just screw it down. Simple as that. Now you need to fill your tank, and this is what the normal top cap looks like for the tank, but I'm using this bell cap that I got from Fastech, and I'm just gonna fill it. And it does come with a plug that you can fill it right to the top, but I'm just not going to use that right now. So as simple as a regular Subtank Mini, screw it on, and you're almost ready. All you have to do now is pop it on your mod, and you are ready to vape. So this by no means is the best vape in the world, but in my opinion it definitely makes the original Subtank Mini RBA section a lot better. How I would compare this to the Subtank Mini coils, that's very subjective. If you prefer your own builds, you're probably going to prefer this, but yeah, I just think the flavor I get from this is better than a vertical coil that you would put in the RBA section, and if you wick it correctly, you're not going to get any dry hits from this. I'm vaping this at 25 watts now, and it's a 0.76 coil, and I use too much cotton in the up close. I think I showed that pretty well that I use too much cotton, but so it's blocking the airflow a little bit, and It makes it a bit more of a restricted draw, but it still works. A very decent vape, and unless you're seriously chain vaping this, you're not going to get dry hits, and I find the flavor is better, so it's up to you. I want to apologize to Jordan, who's been waiting a long time for this tutorial, and I apologize if this didn't help you too much, but it's the best that I could do with doing it on camera and stuff like that, so I hope it helped at all. And a few things to just note is getting the coil centered, so using like a 3mm post or rod or something to make sure that the airflow is as wide as it can be, and not using too much cotton like I did, because if you use too much cotton it's gonna block that airflow hole. So yeah, that's just a couple things to check out for. If you like this this bell cap, I'll put the link in the description to where you can get it. I got it from Fastech. It was a couple bucks. So yeah, that's pretty cool too. It has a removable drip tip. You can put your own on there, and I just find it looks really nice. I'm not 100% sure if this will work on the new Subtanks, but I don't see why not, because I don't think they changed much between the dimensions and stuff. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.